My father left me an old warehouse. My wife said I was a failure, until I stepped inside. The day my father died, he left me something nobody wanted. Not money, not land, not even an apology, just a rusted warehouse on the edge of town, and a key that felt heavier than grief itself. I remember standing outside the lawyer's office, staring at that small brass key resting in my palm. It was scratched, old, ordinary. But somehow it carried the weight of every unfinished conversation I'd ever had with my father. My wife, Lena, didn't even try to hide her disappointment. A warehouse, she repeated that night, standing in the kitchen with her arms crossed. Your father left you a broken building. That's what your whole life amounts to. Her words weren't shouted. They were quiet, calm, and somehow that hurt more. Lena had always been practical, organized, driven. When we first met, that's what I admired about her. She worked as a financial consultant, confident and sharp. I was the opposite, slow thinker, careful, sentimental. I repaired vintage furniture in a small workshop behind our house. It didn't make much, but it made me proud. Or at least, it used to. When we were younger, we used to sit on the roof of our first apartment, sharing cheap takeout and bigger dreams. She would rest her head on my shoulder and say, "We'll build something real one day. Together." Back then, she believed in me. Or maybe she believed in who she thought I could become. The warehouse was located on the industrial side of town, near the river where old factories had long since closed. I hadn't been there since I was a child. My father used to take me there on Sundays. He'd unlock the big sliding doors, and sunlight would spill across the dusty floor like it was blessing something sacred. He never explained what he did there. I just remember the smell, wood shavings, oil, iron, and something else, something warm. We didn't talk much, my father and I. He wasn't the kind of man who said, "I'm proud of you." He showed up, fixed things, stayed silent. When my mother left, he didn't cry in front of me. He just worked longer hours. As I grew older, we grew further apart. I thought he resented me for not choosing a real career. For not chasing money. For being content with restoring broken tables and antique chairs. When he got sick, I visited him at the hospital. He looked smaller somehow, like the world had slowly pressed him down. He held my hand once, just once, and said, "Some things look worthless, until you see what's inside." I thought he was talking about life. Maybe he wasn't. After the funeral, I avoided the warehouse for weeks. Lena didn't push me to visit it. She didn't care what was inside. To her, it was a burden. "Sell it," she said one evening while scrolling through listings on her tablet. "The land alone might be worth something. We could invest properly. Stop wasting time on these hobbies." Hobbies. That word stayed with me. It wasn't just about money. I could feel something shifting between us. Small comments, subtle sighs, the way she started answering phone calls in another room, the way she'd look at me when bills came in, as if I personally invited them. Still, I trusted her. We'd been married 8 years. 8 years of shared breakfasts, late-night talks, quiet apologies after small arguments. I told myself stress changes people. It doesn't reveal them. The only person who didn't treat me like I'd failed was my best friend, Daniel. Daniel and I had known each other since high school. He was loud where I was quiet, confident where I hesitated. He ran a small logistics company and always seemed to be moving forward. "You going to check it out or what?" he asked me over coffee one morning. "I don't know what I'm expecting," I admitted. "Closure, maybe," he said. "Or answers." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "Your dad wasn't stupid," Daniel added. "If he left it to you, there's a reason." That sentence stayed with me longer than Lena's criticism. Daniel had always been there. When my mother left, when I proposed to Lena, when business was slow, he helped me move furniture, lent me tools, never once made me feel small. Looking back, I can see now how important that trust was. A few days later, I finally drove to the warehouse. The road felt longer than I remembered. The building appeared slowly through the morning fog, large and tired, its metal walls streaked with rust. The sign above the door was barely hanging on, the letters faded beyond recognition. I parked and just sat there. The river nearby moved quietly, like it had secrets of its own. For a moment, I almost turned back. Lena had texted me earlier that morning. "Don't get your hopes up. It's just a building. Just a building." I stepped out of the car and approached the doors. The air smelled damp, heavy with history. The lock resisted at first, as if it didn't recognize me. Then the key turned. The sound echoed louder than it should have. When I slid the doors open, dust swirled in the thin beam of light cutting through the darkness. My footsteps echoed across the concrete floor. It was bigger than I remembered. Old workbenches lined one wall. Shelves stacked with covered objects. A massive tarp draped over something in the center of the room. And there it was again, that smell. Wood, oil, warmth. I walked slowly, touching surfaces, feeling the grain of wood beneath my fingers. My father's presence was everywhere. Not in pictures, not in letters, but in the care of how things were arranged. This wasn't abandoned. It was paused. I noticed something strange near the back wall, a small office space I didn't remember. The door was slightly open. My heart began to beat faster. Inside, there was a desk, an old lamp, a filing cabinet, and on the desk, a leather-bound notebook with my name written on the first page. My name. My hands trembled as I picked it up. This wasn't random. This wasn't an afterthought inheritance. This was intentional. I flipped the cover open, and that's when I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, measured, not echoes of my own. I turned toward the doorway, my pulse roaring in my ears. A familiar silhouette stood there, half hidden in shadow, and in that moment, before a single word was spoken, I felt something shift. Not in the room, in my life, will reveal what was inside the notebook, and who was standing in that doorway. My father left me an old warehouse. My wife said I was a failure, until I stepped inside. The silhouette stepped forward. It was Daniel. For a split second, relief washed over me. Daniel, I exhaled, forcing a weak smile. You nearly gave me a heart attack. He didn't smile back. Instead, his eyes drifted to the notebook in my hands. Not surprised, not curious, expectant. You found it, he said quietly. The words didn't register at first. Found what? I asked. He stepped fully into the office, the light from the warehouse cutting across his face. There was something different in his expression. Not anger, not guilt, calculation. The notebook, he replied. Your dad said you would. My grip tightened around the leather cover. How do you know that? I asked. Silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. Daniel walked past me, glancing around the office as if he'd been there before. As if this wasn't his first time inside. I've been helping your father for years, he said finally. With the warehouse. The words hit me slowly. Helping? How? He ran a hand over the desk, almost affectionately. Logistics. Suppliers. Distribution contacts. He wasn't just storing old junk in here. A chill ran down my spine. What are you talking about? Daniel looked at me then, really looked at me. You never asked him what he was building, did you? My mouth felt dry. All those Sundays. The smells. The covered objects. The careful organization. I swallowed. Building what? Instead of answering, Daniel nodded toward the notebook. Open it. My fingers felt stiff as I turned back to the first page. The handwriting was unmistakable. My father's. Steady. Precise. If you're reading this, it means I ran out of time. My chest tightened. I know you think I never believed in you. That I saw you as small. You're wrong. My vision blurred. I didn't leave you money because money disappears. I left you something that grows. Page after page outlined designs. Processes. Client lists. Custom commissions. Photographs tucked between pages of handcrafted furniture, intricate pieces I had never seen before. Not simple restorations, original creations, masterpieces. My father hadn't been storing junk. He had been building a private, high-end furniture studio. Quietly, selectively, supplying clients who valued craftsmanship over mass production. The warehouse wasn't worthless. It was a sleeping legacy. I flipped to another page. There were notes about me. He has the hands for it. The patience. More than I ever did. My throat closed. If he chooses this, he won't just continue my work. He'll surpass it. A deep silence filled the room. You knew, I whispered. Daniel nodded once. He was planning to bring you in, he said. Officially. But he wanted you to choose it. Not feel forced. I felt anger rising, but it wasn't clean anger. It was confusion tangled with betrayal. Why didn't you tell me? I demanded. Daniel's jaw tightened. Because he asked me not to. That answer should have comforted me. Instead, something didn't sit right. Then why are you here now? I asked. His eyes flicked toward the notebook again. Because this place can't run on sentiment, he said carefully. It needs capital, connections, structure. His voice had shifted. Less friend, more businessman. I can help you scale it, he continued. Turn it into something massive. National. Maybe even international. The words sounded impressive, but they felt cold. I don't even know if I want to run it yet, I said quietly. Daniel stepped closer. You don't have that luxury. That sentence hung in the air. What does that mean? He hesitated, and there it was, a crack. Your wife called me, he admitted. The world, tilted slightly, called you. About what? Daniel exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding it in for weeks. She's worried about you, he said. About your finances. About the future. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. She thinks you're stuck, he continued. That you need direction. Direction. I stared at him. And you're giving it to me? I asked. His eyes hardened, not cruel, just firm. She asked me to look over the property value. To evaluate options. Options. The word felt heavier than it should have. Sell it, I asked quietly. He didn't answer. That was answer enough. I stepped back, the notebook pressed against my chest. You've been discussing selling my father's warehouse, I said slowly, behind my back. Daniel's expression shifted, defensive now. She didn't think you'd see it clearly, he said. She's trying to protect your future. Protect. I let out a hollow laugh. The pieces began rearranging themselves in my mind. The phone calls in the other room. The financial pressure. The quiet disappointment. And Daniel, always available. Always advising. How long? I asked. His silence was louder than any confession. My chest felt tight, not from anger alone, but from something deeper. Trust cracking. You said he left this to me for a reason, I whispered. Was that true, or were you already planning your angle? That hit him. I'm still your friend, he said sharply. Are you? I asked. For years, Daniel had stood beside me, celebrated with me, helped me, but now I saw something I hadn't noticed before. Opportunity. Not in the warehouse. In me. You think I can't run this, I said quietly. Just like she does. I think you're not ready, he replied. The words were calm, measured, devastating. For so long, I had believed their concern was love. But standing there, in the space my father built in silence, I felt something awaken inside me. Not pride, not ego, clarity. My father never explained himself. He built, he prepared, he trusted me without saying it out loud. And maybe that was the difference. Daniel stepped closer again. We can sign preliminary paperwork this week, he said. At least secure an evaluation before the market shifts. Paperwork. My father had left me designs. Legacy. Belief. And my closest friend was talking about market shifts. I looked down at the notebook. Then back at him. I'm not signing anything, I said. His jaw tightened. You're making this emotional. No, I replied softly. I'm finally making it mine. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel nodded slowly, but there was distance in it now. Think about it, he said. Just don't wait too long. He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed across the concrete. When the doors shut behind him, the warehouse felt different. Quieter, but stronger. I stood alone in the center of the space. The tarp-covered structure in the middle of the room caught my attention again. Slowly, I walked toward it. My hands gripped the edge of the heavy fabric. For a second, doubt flickered. Lena's voice. Daniel's certainty. Years of being told I wasn't enough. Then I pulled the tarp back. And what stood beneath it took my breath away. Not because of its size. Not because of its value. But because of what it represented. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a failure. I felt chosen.